Greetings, Earth enthusiasts. If you ever wondered about the incredible perspectives our planet has to offer from high above, you're in the right place. I am Dr. Clive Coetzee, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this captivating journey into the world of remote sensing. Welcome. And please remember to like, subscribe to, and share this video. Thank you.
We will be continuing with our detour or short mission, working on or working with various QGIS image classification tools. And we've done 4 tools up to now. Just confirm, we've started with Jetseka. I keep on getting that name not right, but anyway, that's the first tool that we've done. Then we moved over to or progressed to the classification tool, this one here. And then from there, we went into the supervised classifier, that tool there. So that was number 3. And then we did the neural network tool. That was number 4. Okay, so that was 4 tools or 4 image classification tools that we've used so far. So we've got 2 to go. And then we're obviously going to do object-based image classification, which is where we're now working with the spectral signature of each location or each pixel to identify or to classify it within, the land use land classifications. We're going to do object-based, which is obviously a different methodology. But anyway, that a little bit, we're going to do that a little bit later. Okay, so that is basically videos 180, I think. Yes, tutorials 180 till 190. So that's what's it, 6 or 7 videos that we've made. Okay. So by the way, before we proceed, please and thank you, in the same vein, in the same sentence, please, let's get those numbers up. And thank you for having these numbers. It means the world to me, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much. And as I said, please feel free to smash those buttons, forward, link, like, subscribe, send me a comment, send me a note. I do respond to each and every one. And then I said I also have a Facebook page where you're most welcome to join me for more discussions and deliberations on remote sensing and the use of QGIS, RStudio, the use of Google Earth Engine, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so let's proceed. So as I said, we've done 4 tools. Last one that we've done was the neural network. So the next classification tool that we're going to use is the OTB toolbox. Okay, so it sits there in your processing toolbox within QGIS. It's a plugin. Okay, so we're going to go to plugins. On the top here, we're going to go to manage and install plugins. And you just wait until it's connected to the database. Under all, you just put in OTB, and then it sits, it's installed. OTB, sorry, not OTP, OTB. It's called Orfeo Toolbox Provider. And you simply just install it. Okay, so there's all the links to various sites, etc., etc. Okay, and once it's installed, obviously it will be located within your installed plugins. Okay, and you basically just close it, and it will, as I said, it will be located within the processing toolbox. It sits there. Okay, so that's the 5th tool that we're going to use in our image classification series or image classification mission. Okay, so there we go. So there's basically 3 steps or 3 activities that we have to do in terms of the image classification within this toolbox. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to have to compute our image statistics. So that's the first step. We compute image statistics. Second step is we train our classifier. And the third step is we classify. So it's a 3-step approach or 3-pronged approach to our image classification, where the others were basically one window and you select all the options and you say classify. Here it's a little bit more complex. Not complex per se, but it's more detailed. It takes a bit longer. There's more steps to do. Okay, and there's a huge number of methods within this tool. Okay, so once we've got OTB installed, then we're going to look for learning. Okay, this one here, learning. Okay, so that is the function that we're looking for. Then within learning, you'll see there's a whole lot of options. When we do object-based classification, we're going to come back to this. But for now, we're going to do, first of all, we're going to go to compute image statistics. Okay, so that's the first step. So if we open that, it's going to ask you for your image. Remember, the image would be your stack raster. Okay, your stack raster. We're not going to do this now. We're just going to go for it. In the next video tutorial, we can actually do it. And the background value, you leave at 0, and then you save it. What is important when you save it, you have to save it as a .xml file. It doesn't automatically knows the format that you have to save it. So you have to save it, let's say, as train.xml. So remember that. Always add the .xml, where the previous, like in Excel, it will automatically put the .xls or Word, Word or whatever the case, the PowerPoint.ppt or raster.tif. Here you actually have to say .xml. Now I'm not sure why they didn't just build it in. They have the reasons, I assume. So remember, you have to type it in .xml. Okay, so that's your first step. Okay, and then you simply just run it, and that's your first step. Okay, so the first step is once you've installed OTB or for your toolbox, this toolbox, once you've installed it, the first step is you have to train or you have to calculate the image statistics of your stacked raster. Remember, in my case, my stack raster has all the sentinel bands. Okay, it's not just 1 to 7, it's got 1 to 10, or 1 to 12, all the sentinel bands. Okay, so remember, first step is compute image statistics. So that's your first step. And that will create a XML file. And that XML file is important because we're going to use it in step 2 and in step 3. So that's your first thing, your first activity. Compute image statistics. Remember that? Compute image statistics. It's computing the image statistics of our stacked raster. Okay. Same one that we used in the other image classification tools. Exactly the same stack raster. No different to that. Okay, so that is step number 1. Step number 2 is to train the image classifier. Okay, train the image classifier. That's going to be our next. So the second step is the train image classifier. Okay, and I said we're going to need this file that we've created here when we say compute the image statistics. That XML file that we've created here, that's the file that we're going to need within our train image classifier. Okay, so let's open train image classifier, and here is where the fun really starts. Okay, if you see this as fun, you may not see it as fun. I actually do enjoy this. So input image is our stack raster. Okay, that would be our stack raster. So always your input image is your stack raster. And I said it's the same one that we've used now the whole time. The input vector data list. Now this is your training file. Okay, you'll see if I open it, this is our training file. So you open your training file. Okay, so that's your stack raster, that's your training file. Okay, in this case it's the vector one, not the raster one that we used in the neural net. Remember neural network, when we do the neural network, when it's looking for the training image, it's looking at in a TIFF file. Whereas if you look at the Taka or the classification or the classifier, they're looking for the shape file or the vector file when it comes to training. So in this case, the training file is also again the vector or the shape file training file, not the raster one. And then you see validation, you leave open, there's nothing to do there. So just leave it as is, and here is your XML statistics file. So here you're going to upload that XML file that you've just created within the compute image statistics. You're going to upload it here. Okay. Then temporary files clearing, leave that as is. Maximum training sample per class. That again, you can leave as is. However, you can play around with this number. Okay, that's totally up to you. Maximum validation size per sample, that again is up to you. Bound, that is up to you. So these three, maximum training sample, maximum validation sample, bound sample, leave it as is. If you want to, you can play around with it to see what the impact of those would be, but for now, we're going to leave it. This is quite an important part here. Okay, that's an important part there. So here, it's at the moment, the default is 50% between training and validation. Okay, so a better would be 80% training and 20% validation. 50% is too little to train. The training is the classification. The validation is to check whether or to determine how accurate your classification was. Okay, so rather move it to minimum I would go is 70%. I wouldn't go to 50%. That is just too little classification. And then obviously this field is within this training file. Okay, within this training file. Okay, what are the column ID that they must use for the classes? Remember, if we go to our training, there's our training. If I go to open attribute, you see it's called ID. Ones and twos. We don't use the text, we use the numerical value. So within the training file, remember we've loaded this training file. Within this training file, which column must it use for the classification? Which column must it use? And in our case, we're going to use the ID, because remember the ID is the number where the class is text. So we're going to use the ID. DEM. Now, if you have a DM, then add it here. Now, this is a very nice feature. And we're going to play around with classification with the DM and without the DM. But this is a nice feature to include. Intuitively, it doesn't make a huge difference in my experience, but we're going to test it. Okay, so that's quite a neat feature, something unique. You can add your digital elevation model, you can add in here. Geo file, you can leave alone. Default elevation, you can leave as is. And here is where there's a hell load of options. Classifier to use for the training. And you see there's a whole. This is lip, CM, boost, DT, and bias, random forest, K nearest neighbor, shark, RF, shark, KM. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 methods, classification methods. Okay, and you'll see with each method, there's types and there's models. Okay, so there's a number of combinations that you can play around with. As I said, if you say take boost, boost has now its own types and its own parameters. So each of these classification methods or classifiers have its own parameters. And you can see there's a hell load of it. So you can play around with it. It will take you months and months and months to do all the different combinations. But again, that's totally up to you, whether you just keep it broad or you want to delve into the minute nuances and detail. Okay, but we're going to play around with all of them, and we're going to keep the types or the parameters roughly constant. Okay, so there's a lot of them. Okay, so the compute image statistics you do once. Here is where you do all your parameter selections. Okay, here is where you do the actual training of your model, and you generate your model parameters within all of these options. And I said there's a lot. And then you run, and then you save it again. You're going to save it as a XML file. Okay, so this is not generating a GeoTIFF image. This is again just generating a training file, which we save as a XML. So both the image statistics and the train image classifier, those output we save as a XML file. And then confusion matrix, that's up to you if you want to save it. So this is where all the fun lies. This is where all the activity lies. Okay. So once we've trained the classifier, okay, the image classifier, we will have now another XML file. So we'll have two XML files. We have an XML file for your compute image statistics, and we have a XML file for your train image classifier. Okay, so that's now two files done. This you could just generate once. So your image statistics XML file you only generate once. But your train image classifier, you're going to generate as many of them as you want to, based on different selection, different parameter selections. And again, that is totally up to you. Now, once you have all two of these XML files, then we're going to actually classify our image. And this is our third step, image classifier. Okay, so image the statistics, train image classifier, and then image classifier. So that's the order of proceedings. So image classifiers, there's your image input image. Again, that is your raster, the stack raster. Your mask, we're gonna leave that open. This is your model file. This is the one that we've just generated in here. Your train image classifier, your XML file we just generated. That we're going to add here. There's your statistic file, the one that we've, the XML file that we originally generated with compute image statistics. The rest we're going to leave exactly the same. We're not going to hana with all of these things, and we're going to save. And there's our output as a TIFF. There's our confidence map as a TIFF. There's our probability map as a TIFF. So we'll have three files that we're going to save for each of those classifiers. Okay, for each of those classifiers. Then we close and it will classify. Okay, so, and we're going to run multiple versions of this tool because of all the different classifiers, all the different methods that it has in. It has by far the largest number of methods. Much more. The others, as you can remember, has between 4 and 5 methods, and each of those methods have maybe 1 or 2 parameters. Where this one has a number of classifiers, methods, and each of those methods have a number of parameters. So this one, I think, if you most probably add up, you can get to 50, 60, even more. Yeah, no, easy more. Images, classified images, much more. Whereas I said the others you get 5, 6, 7, and 8. This one you can get 60, 70 classified images easily because of the different combinations of those parameters. Okay, so just to recap, first is install this toolbox, install this plugin or Furio toolbox. So that's your first step, install it. Then it should be located within your processing box. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step number 2 obviously is to make sure you have your stacked raster. In our case, we're using a Sentinel image with all 12 bands or 11 bands. Yeah, 12 bands. Okay, so that's our stack raster. That's step number 2. Step number 3, compute our image statistics. Okay, so that's going to be step number 3. Save that file as an XML file. Step number 4. Step number 4 is train our image classifier. Okay, and then within that option or that step is where all your parameters sit. And so you select your parameters in that, and then you save it also as an XML. This is now the model. You save that model as an XML model. Once you've done that, you do your image classifier. So in your image classifier, you need 3 files. You need your stacked raster, you need your image statistics, and you need your model, your train model that you've done in your image classifier. So those are the 3 files that you need. Also, yeah, so also remember in your image classifier, that's where you load your training vector, the ones that with all our land use, land cover classifications. Remember, we have 6 land uses. That's where we've done so most of the work sits within the second step. This is where most of your work sits. As I said, the final step is just to classify the image, and this is where those three files are needed. Your stack raster, your image statistics, and your trained model. And then it will classify. Okay, so that is cool. Sorry about that phone call. But anyway, I hope it didn't sound too crazy. Okay, so this is method number 5. This is our 5th tool in our toolbox of classifiers, image classifiers that we're going to use. Okay, so this is the Opherio toolbox, and within that toolbox we're using machine learning. Within machine learning we use the image classifier. So that's basically what we've done. So we haven't actually done a classifier, but the purpose of this video is just to take you through the 3 steps, just to take you through the process, just to give you an idea of what the options look like. Okay, so then the next video tutorial we're actually going to do a classification, and then we're going to do a couple of classifications based on different parameter selections. And once, obviously, then we can also then add that to our spreadsheet where we're going to compare how this tool is behaving against the classifications of our other tools. Remember, we've got that spreadsheet running where we're going to basically do a ranking at the end of the day to say, okay, based on our accuracy, where do each of these tools and methods fit? To just get an idea of, in this particular situation, which is yielding more reliable, accurate, and which ones are not. And we've already got some idea, if you can remember the spreadsheet. But anyway, we're going to get back to that as well. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what we're going to do within this specific toolbox. And as I said, please remember the 3 steps. It is, first of all, compute image statistics. That's step number 1. Okay, remember, it's now after you've activated or installed your plugin, you've got your stack raster, all of those things done and dusted. Compute image statistics, train image classifier, and image classifier. That's the 3 things. If you know those 3 things, then the rest is fairly straightforward. Okay, so next video, we're going to do a classification using the OTB toolbox. Okay, so with that said, let me stop there for now. Let me give you a last thank you for your support. Thanks for joining me. And remember to hit those buttons and like and subscribe. And I'll see you on the other side.